Hello, miniature painting enthusiasts. This is Dakian, welcoming you to my latest update video. This is for Monday the 16th of November 2015. And since the last video, I have completed 6 more minis. Let's start with these in front, which are some hassle-free minis that I just randomly selected because I thought they'd be fun to paint. We have, let's see if we can, this lady. I hope you can see what she's supposed to be. Lighting. The backside isn't that interesting to look at. We have some little kid with water gun, and we have this tough guy with his shoulder holster and t-shirt and jeans. We have the witches, which I have sort of vague plans to use in Frostgrave. They're finally finished. They turned out reasonable, I think. I did an experiment on this one. I tried to paint some sheer cloth. That is the cloth stretched over her body. Should be slightly translucent so you can see the skin through. I'm not sure if that comes across quite so well. Did not do it on the back to that extent, but a little bit here in front. And finally we have Kojo, the ape from Malifaux. Now as advertised, I painted fur on more of his body than the actual sculpt had. And when you're looking at it up close like this in macro zoom, it looks obviously fake. You know, the illusion is clear, but it's clear that it is an illusion. But I think at a distance, at a tabletop context, you know, you're not gonna notice it. It's gonna look good, I think. Well, those were my success stories this week. So the main work in progress we have going here is my threshold agents for Strange Aeons. And they're almost done. You might think they don't look almost done because most of them are still in primer, but I have done all the faces, eyes, and hair and hands. That is the skin, the hair, and the metallic portions, the weapons. And on some of them, I started on the clothing. And the clothing is actually the simpler part of it. The clothing is going to go relatively quickly as compared to the slightly finicky work of painting faces and hair. And I've actually, on these intended for Frostgrave guys, also done faces and hands and hair. Now they're not showing as much of their faces and their hair as these guys, so there's more left to do on these. They're mostly covered in clothing, and it's, as usual, going to be a stretch doing it in something other than 10 different shades of brown. But, you know, if you remember my Technicolor or pastel warriors from a while back, I can do something similar to that to make them stand out a bit. Yeah, that's what's in the works. I've built up the Dawn Serpent now, and well, you can see the instructions here in the background. I printed them out. Even with the instructions, it was a fairly tricky build on occasion. There were some parts like this arm here. I wasn't entirely sure about how it would fit. I need to go in and do some gap filling like in his jaw here. And these antennae or whatever, they are still, even though the glue has had several minutes to set, This one, I don't know. Might have to build up around the root of it with some putty to help it stay in place. Anyway, I was talking last time about basing. I'm not going to use that scenic, that Asian thing base. Because it's not at an angle like this. This is the appropriate way of. I mean, it could conceivably just lie flat on a base like this, or maybe a little bit like this. And I could have some scenery that it's curling around. But I was thinking of doing something more interesting. I was inspired by what people have been doing I looked around the net for some images. And what I'm thinking is I'm going to take this piece of cork, glue it down as a and make it painted up as a rock pillar, and then attach the serpent so it's kind of curling around as if it's flying and just happens to be flying past this little rock formation, just slithering past it through the air. And angle it more like that, I think. Yeah. That might, I think this is going to look pretty dramatic and interesting. Well, that's what I'm thinking right now anyway. You'll have to see next update how far I've gotten. Ta-da! This is the reveal of those mystery minis I teased you with last video. Now you can see what they are. Maybe. Oh well, in case you're wondering, they're goblins. They're goblin, mostly wolf riders, in 15mm scale. There's a few infantrymen. There's like 2 spear guys on foot and 1 guy with a big axe who looks like some sort of leader. And also I have these trolls. These are big giant trolls in this scale. I discovered these while I was rummaging through some old unpainted minis way down in the bottom of my pile. And I'd forgotten that, well, apparently at some point I was planning to start doing 15mm scale. But it never, you know, happened. So I thought, well, they shouldn't be too difficult to paint up. I mean, you can't spend as much time on something in the smaller scale. They should be rather rapid. And oh, by the way, I even discovered this little baggie of plastic squares. These are pieces of plastic card that I cut out, apparently intending to use them as basis for these. And I remembered, once I'd measured them, these are the measurements used in a specific game, namely this one, Hordes of the Things, which is the fantasy version of DBA, or De Bellis Antiquitatis, which is one of the more common 15mm rule sets used. So, yeah, I'm gonna base them as elements for use with this rule set and paint them up. And I'll use my speed painting techniques because they're so small. I'm just going to give them base coat, highlight, and a top wash, I think. That'll be quite enough. But it'll be something different. And I think it'll be fun. sad to say I don't have any new arrivals to show you, because even though I know that there are, well, a lot of packages on their way to me, because I've ordered way too much stuff, none arrived this past week. Nothing that was miniatures related anyway. So what you're looking at here is some terrain pieces I've showed you once before, and it's just because I intend to build and paint them the coming week, if I have the time, among my other projects. What happened to those numbers, you might be wondering? Why did the purchase total get away from me? Well, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Last week, a certain online retailer lowered their already low prices on certain minis even more. They went down from costing 50% of what they used to 25%. Among those, a lot of first edition Malifaux, and I felt, well, I gotta get them now because they're gonna disappear. Those are not being made anymore. I have to pick them up while I can. And so I placed a pretty large order where I got lots and lots of minis for very little money. But still, it's not reducing my pile of unpainted stuff, especially. But on the other hand, as I've shown you, I do have a lot of stuff that is half finished or that can be finished very quickly, and I can get those sums back in balance. Have some balance between the light and the dark side again. That is at least my plan. We'll have to see next week how well I accomplish that plan. Maybe even I'll do a little midweek update, because I've got so many projects coming along right now. But in any case, this video is now over. I'm Doc Eon, and I'm signing off.